Hey yo, what's up guys? It's your host Bombay here and I wanted to go over a little rant of sorts. And it's about a perk we all know and love, sometimes hate, and it's Hex No One Escapes Death. Now, for the past couple of weeks, I've been thinking about this perk and how the community sees this perk and how survivor players see this perk, how killer players see this perk, and yeah, it's a controversial perk in the community, and I do understand why. There's certain situations that you're like, yeah, that's just BS, man. I did so good this match, and now I'm gonna die. So I wanted to go over a couple of changes, and I'll list them accordingly. So the first one is why I think this perk gets a lot more hate than it deserves. Second is the survivors. Third is the killer. Fourth is suggested changes from my side and other people. And last one is like closing. So let's start with why this perk gets a lot more hate than it deserves. A lot of people will bring up the argument like, oh, but Vampire, it requires no skill to use this perk. And I agree. This perk requires no skill at all. But that being said, what perk actually does require skill in this game? Like, mm, it's so most perks are just gen stopping perks. People bring some perks like Dark Devotion, for example. Yeah, okay, you can like make a good tactic, like, oh, I'm gonna hit the survivor and I got this corn, so I go there with no terror radius. Um, yeah, those things can be a little bit like mindful, but there's no skill involved. You just have to make sure you hit your obsession. Um, who says you're even finding your obsession? So, in my opinion, no perk really requires skill at all. And a lot of times I hear, but baby killers use NOED. If a killer is that much of a baby and he relies on NOED, you should have feel no pressure at all to do totem or even save your teammate because you've got plenty of perks to save teammate. Like borrow time, your teammate could have decisive strike. There's plenty of things you could do to against a camping killer that relies on NOED for the end. Now, let's go over survive. Alright? I kind of blame survivors for this perk existing because survivors like to do generators get out, right? And then complain about NOED if they get hit. I personally run perks that aren't usually meta most of the times, like Better Together, Second Wind. I think those two are great together. Detector's Hunch, I like combined with Inner Strength. If the meta wasn't what it is, then I think a lot less killers would like to bring NOED. Why? For example, every survivor, there are 4 survivors in the game. Every survivor does one, right? That leaves one totem remaining for the killer to put their hopes in NOED. So 1 out of 4 survivor has to do an extra totem. And that's what? 14 to 20 seconds. I don't know the exact time, but I believe it's like around that. Yeah, maybe switch up the meta. If you really hate NOED, you should bring perks to fight it. And I get it, like, oh, but doing totems doesn't help you in the trial. Does it? If you hate NOED and you get hit by it often, doesn't doing totems help you? Because that would certainly help you. Now, let's go over to the killer side. Because I'm not gonna pretend killer all fine and dandy. Like, if you rely on NOED, you're probably doing it wrong. Like there's a lot of perks that can help you, give you information, tell you what you probably should do and shouldn't do. And I agree, sometimes there is nothing you could have done in a game, and survivors just did the gens and got out. There's nothing you could have done. Now, that being said, I have games where I thought I was like, oh man, these survivors, they don't deserve to escape because I played so well. And then later I go over my recordings, and guess what? I saw a couple of mistakes I did. Like, for example, oh, I chased a mech who was on her first hook. 2 gens left. I shouldn't have done that. Just an example. And that's basically it. Now, as for proposed changes to this perk, the biggest one I've heard is like, oh, give it a barbecue and chili effect. For each unique survivor hooked, you get a token. That token adds to your NOED, so 4 tokens in total. At the end of the game, you have 4 tokens, so you have 4 times an insta down with your basic attack. And I honestly don't think it's a bad suggestion for changes. But I do see the problem in these changes. First of all, it doesn't need to be a hexbug if you go through with changes. Because if the killer is going out of his way to at least hook every survivor once before the last generator is finished, then he should be rewarded at the end of the game. Plain and simple. Second is, if you play killer often enough, you'll know that you're not gonna go consistently for survivor. Like, you're probably like, okay, there's a Claudette, she is dead on hook. The game is almost finished, she is dead on hook. There's a Dwight that's almost dead on hook. There's a Nia that maybe is on her second hook. And there's a Meg out there that I have not hooked yet. And she is not worthy to hook. So you're probably thinking like, okay, well, I'll leave Meg alone, maybe for later. And I'll go for the Dwight and the Claudette. So let's say you get, by luck, you get Claudette and Dwight out of the game. Right? They're out. Now you have 3 tokens for 2 survivors. Maybe 4 if you find the mag before the last gem pops. Because with 2 survivors, it's. That totally discredits your insta down potential. Totally discredits it. Because do you really need 4 tokens for 2 survivors? No, you don't. So, yeah, that's about it for suggested changes from other people. Now I want to put my 2 cents in and talk about my changes for this perk. My suggested change for this perk is plain and simple. Remove the speed increase for killers. As you can see on screen, your movement speed is increased by 4% at level 3. I think this is honestly plain ridiculous. Honestly, ridiculous. Because you don't need that 4% extra speed at the end of the game. Because let's be honest, most pellets that are safe are gone. Simply gone. Out of the game. So the movement speed increase is, yeah, it's just a bit too much. Now I agree, the exposed status effect should still be there. But on the other side, I think having infinite exposed status effect can be a problem, because in some maps the doors are really closed and you could slug one survivor and find the other, and you know where the hatch is most of the time as killer. So I think that's unhealthy. I think putting it at a timer of, in my opinion, 120 seconds at the highest tier is fair enough, because that's like a double haunted grounds. That's a double haunted ground. And I think we should remove the hex part of it. Just keep no one escapes that. Like, you have 2 minutes to insta down. 2 minutes. After those 2 minutes, well, good luck. Your instant arm potential has been removed. So that is honestly my 2 cents, and I wanted to leave it there and go a little bit back on a rant because the one thing, and I can't keep saying this enough, is the fact that I hate that people say this perk requires no skill. That's something I cannot stand because literally none of the perks require skill. None. If you know a perk that you say this perk requires skill, let me know in the comment section. We can talk. But I'm honestly open for debate, and my mind could be changed on NOED. Maybe some people say things that I'm like, I haven't thought about. So that's where I wanted to leave it for today. I'll see you guys in the fog. Have good games, everybody. GG.